Ghost Hunting in New England.
Your favorite spooky podcast.
Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Ghost Hunting in New England. I'm your host, Amelia, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Will Fox of the Long Island Paranormal Investigators, New York State branch. Hey, Will, how are you?
Hi.
Hey. So we were going to do an episode today on 2020 psychic predictions. That didn't end up working out. Luckily, Will was a champ and came up with a great idea for tonight's episode. And I'm so excited. I think we're going to have so much fun. Should we just get started?
We can always just get started.
All right. So today what we're talking about is the difference between residual and intelligent hauntings, which are kind of the two main hauntings that people talk about when we talk about ghosts being in space. I found this article on Medium that is called The Difference Between a Residual and Intelligent Haunting. Oh, and it is by Justin Benvenu. And so it first says, what is a residual haunting? So I'm going to read off this article, then we're going to talk about it. Will's going to give us some stories, and we're going to go from there. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Okay. What is a residual haunting? Residual hauntings are somewhat hard to describe, but are fairly common. Also known as psychic impressions, residual hauntings are considered by many as a type of haunting experienced by most people. When a ghost, person or animal, or even an event is witnessed over and over again, or doing the exact same thing, this is known as a residual haunting. It is residual because it is believed that the energy from emotionally charged events imprint onto our world. It is the release of this residual energy that creates a ghost person, ghost animal, or ghostly scene. Famed paranormal investigator Frederick W. H. Myers called this type of haunting a vertical afterimage. A residual haunting, according to Myers' definition, would be a memory impression left by individuals, animals, or events, especially, it would seem, when under duress from a time when there was the release of strong emotions left as pictures in the atmosphere of a particular site. The ghosts of residual hauntings can be both seen or heard repeating the same activity. It is believed that most disembodied footsteps and many ghostly noises that are heard in a haunted place might be residual in origin. The residual sounds can be heard over and over and by different people. For example, it is said in the Queen Mary's second-class pool room, one can still hear splashing, though the pool is now empty. We may think of residual hauntings as a movie being replayed day after day, and occasionally someone is lucky enough to see or hear the encore. It is believed by ghost hunters that some events, due to strong emotional energy attached to it, imprints themselves on the environment where the event took place, sort of trapped in time. The event is recorded in the atmosphere of the location. It's the same as spirits of people. If one were to see a ghost doing the same activity over and over and with no response to the present environment, it is likely a residual haunting. The person's spirit is not there, in this theory, but just the phantasm of them exists, like a photograph in time. Residual hauntings are past events playing in the present, but with no interaction and no connection to the present. And that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, there's a couple things that it doesn't really cover, but the one thing that's needs to be clear when you're talking about a residual haunting is the fact that the spirit of whoever you're seeing or whatever you're seeing happen, whether it be a battle, like the epicenter of residual hauntings in the USA is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. What you're seeing with the battles that are entire battles that are being held in front of you, what you're seeing is not the spirits of those individuals it's just it's almost just a spiritual projection of what happened at one point in their lives. So the biggest thing to remember when you're dealing with a residual haunting is that there's not a physical entity there. It's just a recording of it.
Yeah, and like you and I were talking about a little before the show, a lot of times this is called stone tape theory. And so in the stone tape theory, It's that what's causing this is the energy kind of gets trapped on these natural materials around.
Right. Yeah. And one of the departments that we have in Long Island Paranormal Investigators is called the Stones Department, and they deal with all the stones that could potentially be involved with stone tape theory. Some being limestone, magnetite, granite, quartz are the four big ones. They call it stone tape theory, but it's kind of biased because wood, sand, dirt, pretty much anything can potentially be a part of stone tape theory. It's just more likely with things like limestone because it just has more qualities of being able to absorb energy like that and store it. But most people think that when something like I said, wood, sand, or dirt, they're not quite as good at recording and holding that energy. So if it gets disturbed, say like construction comes through and overturns the soil, or people run along the beach and step in the sand, or trees get knocked down, the energy kind of stored up in those mediums gets released, almost not erased, but just released, and it's not projected and recorded and played over as if it would with stone, which is, I guess, why they call it stone tape theory, right?
And yeah, like you said, it's important for people to remember that it is just this kind of like, and like it said in the article too, like this movie. It's not like a soul stuck there. I remember I was telling my friend Kat about these, and I was like, it's like sometimes you'll go somewhere and it'll just, if a couple argues a lot in the kitchen, there might be some remnants of that one big argument going over and over again every day. And she was like, that's their eternity. Like, they just argue about the time. Like, that's where they're, like, they put so much energy into that. Like, now that's where they are forever. And I was like, no. It's just leftover energy. And no one has to worry about that.
I'd probably have a lot less arguments if that was even possible.
Yes, absolutely. Like,
that brings up a good point where residual hauntings aren't solely just something that you could see happening over and over again. It could also, like you said, just be like a feeling of. A good example is hospitals, where if you step into what used to be the emergency room, a lot of people will just feel anxiety and almost panic at times, where obviously the feeling in an emergency room is kind of excitement and a lot of high energy, and that could be absorbed even by just a normal room, and that feeling just stays there, and that's absolutely a perfect example of residual haunting, especially when you can't necessarily see something happening, but when you walk in, that residual energy of just the same thing happening over and over and over again in the same spot, you could feel it.
Yeah. And I want to get your opinion on this. When I go into a lot of haunted locations, it's like you walk through the door and you can just feel it's haunted, right?
Yes. I don't necessarily know if it's haunted when I first walk in. You could definitely feel something. You feel something's not right, or you feel something's just off.
Right.
There's plenty of places that I can give an example of where it absolutely, as soon as you step over what seems to be just some sort of artificial threshold, it's like you hit a brick wall at some points.
Right. So I'm wondering do you think all or the majority of hauntings have the residual component to it?
That's a pretty good question. That's a good question to hit me with on the spot, Amelia.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, I think you bring up a pretty good point, actually. Cause, most hauntings, we're kind of merging worlds with residual and intelligent hauntings. But, like I was talking about with you earlier, those kind of go hand in hand sometimes, where a lot of people will say a haunted location, they get both kinds of hauntings happening in the same spot. So to have an intelligent haunting, there's generally a pretty good reason why that spirit is attached to that location or that person or that object or, whatever it is. So there's a reason that spirit is there. And majority of the time it's there because that spirit was there in their lifetime, and that location probably has a significant meaning to that person as a person. Majority of the time, obviously it's like a house or something like that they lived in. And when you spend so much time in one spot, that energy could definitely get absorbed and probably simultaneously create residual and intelligent hauntings. Which brings up a question that I'm thinking about now as I'm talking. I'm kind of forming this question. I'm gonna pose this question to you because you already posed one to me before. Do you think that there's ever been a spirit that's actively, intelligently haunting a location that encounters its own residual haunting? For example, let's say, kind of a sad example, but let's say someone gets killed in a house and they don't truly accept the fact that they're dead, and that's one example of an intelligent haunting, is that a spirit might, wander a house not knowing that they're dead yet. But do you think that spirit in that situation has ever encountered its own projection, let's say, of itself walking through a wall or something like that?
That is a really, really great question. I think that's ever happened. I mean, probably makes sense. Seems like something that would happen. Yeah. The only thing
I could think would make that not something that would happen would be if, for some reason, residual hauntings are something that us as living beings can only experience. So maybe there's something about residual hauntings that only a living being can experience, whatever it is, be it a feeling, a sound, a vision, or something like that.
Well, see, I almost thought of that. I don't want to say opposite, but along those kinds of same lines. Because when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, if these hauntings are the energy we leave over from these events, right? So a lot of times these events that are causing the residual haunting to happen prior to people dying. So I was thinking, like, let's say you're with someone or you have a family member or something who's like really negative. You can just walk into that person's room and it just feels really negative, right? Because the energy that they're putting onto it. Maybe they can walk into that room and kind of feel that negativity. You know what I mean? So that, in a sense, is them in some way being able to connect to what might later become their, like, the energy they're leaving there, right?
I mean, that makes sense to me. So then, I guess,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So then I'm wondering if, once you kind of cross over and you become a spirit in whatever kind of dimensions they're existing in, like layered with ours, if then they're able to see more, so that would make it more likely for them to, I don't really know what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Like, no, I get you. We're onto something here.
I think we are.
Because I think to the point that you're talking about, we're almost crossing the line from, and I don't even know where the line is, but we're almost crossing the line from residual haunting over to, something that I'm not fluent in at all, but like, I guess like feng shui and like spirituality, where like, that kind of, the kind of belief that if you're always positive, then you might be able to create this positivity vibe in your space.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, where do you cross the line of residual haunting into like
energy
that kind of thinking?
Well, that's the thing. So that's why stone tape is so fascinating to me, because I'm a Reiki master, and I think that I was talking about this with you last week, where you were saying, like, how come you record in a studio and not in your home? I'm like, I don't really let a lot of people into my home because I'm like very cognizant of the energy. It's really important to me to like have the control over the energy, and like I do all the feng shui stuff at home. I have all of my crystals everywhere and all my plants and everything. That I don't watch certain TV shows in the house. Like, I'll watch them other places, but like I don't allow them in my home. You gotta protect your energy,
That's interesting, because I don't do any of those things. I have no issues. Like, I sit at my desk and research demons, and I have books and books of the names of demons that you're definitely not supposed to say out loud. But these things litter my house. I'm actively, and this is going to be a shout out